Hey, it's Darik with another edition of Instagood, where we focus on the good vibes and motivating service in the community and around the world. And I'm really happy to see once again and to have the founder of Meant to Live Foundation with us today. He's my fam and will be your fam, Eddie Fam. Thank you so much for joining us today, man. I appreciate you so much.
Thanks for having me. I love that intro, by the way. I appreciate that.
It's been a long time. So good to see your face and to have your energy on this program. I want to talk about Meant to Live Foundation, but I'm going to let you explain to people what the mission is, what you're doing, and we'll get to how people can volunteer, how can they can donate in the work that you're doing around the world. Go ahead, please.
Sure. Well, so Meant to Live Foundation, we started in April of 2013. It was mainly in response to my brother, who's a Coptic Orthodox priest, Father Abraham, who had basically left his job at Accenture, and his wife left her job as a patent attorney in DC, and they moved to live in poverty, basically, in Lusaka, Zambia. He took over 5 church communities there, and then discovered there was thousands of kids without parents in the streets. And many of those kids come into the church, but then they have nowhere else to go. So we started Meant to Live Foundation in response to the needs of these kids. We helped them build 3 schools for orphans. It's not an orphanage, but it's a school for orphans. And they teach biblical principles to build their self-esteem and give them hope and faith. They also feed the kids 2 meals, breakfast and lunch, and then provide for the education. And all the money that Meant to Live Foundation raises is to benefit these children. And so 100% of all the money that we get, we actually just send it straight over to Zambia to help these kids.
And I know that you do trips as well to Africa, to Zambia. Can you tell us about that? And if people are watching and listening and they're like, I would love to go there and I would love to experience this, I'd love to help, how can people do that?
Yeah, so actually my sister-in-law runs a mission program there in Zambia. Her name is Delia Fam, and her email is Delia, Dalia, at meant to live, meant number 2, live.org. And she coordinates, mission trips, service trips. There could be, groups of people that just want to go and help, improve the landscaping or the building, and putting classrooms together and libraries, and and raising money for that too, but actually going over and physically like planting gardens in the school, building playgrounds, etc. And then there's a spiritual component too on a mission trip, led usually by a pastor or a priest or a spiritual leader, to go over there and minister to the people and obviously spread the gospel of hope to people, not just the children, but the people that are living there in and around the poor communities that are churches and by the schools.
And Eddie, as we're talking and you're explaining this to me, I had to click over to menttolive.org, which is, again, as you said, MEANT, the number 2 LIVE.org. And I clicked on the gallery and I see these sweet faces, and it moves me. And I love, the kind of, I suppose you would call it a sacrifice that your brother and his family had made going there to serve people. And again, that's what this program, this feature, Instagood, is all about. It's about motivating service to the community. And that is number 1, what we do here outside of playing Taylor Swift songs on the radio. We want to motivate service. We want to bring that spirit. And, not every organization we work with is faith-based, but many are. And we love that and appreciate that, because that is the kernel, the foundation of what you do. And I know that you also love music, and you have been involved in music before you started this organization. You were deeply involved, and you've always had a passion for live shows. I think we've had this discussion before. When I think of Meant to Live, I think of the song by Switchfoot. And I'm trying to remember if that was or it was an inspiration to the name of the organization.
Yeah, it's 100% actually. Switchfoot's one of my favorite bands in the world, because they rock, but also they have a purpose and a meaning to their lyrics, and they have a mission. And the song Meant to Live, man, I heard that so long ago, and it was, we were meant to live for so much more. Have we lost ourselves? And then the other very good line to note is we want more than this world has to offer.
Yes.
And that's really how we feel. We feel like, living the average Joe life, going to work, coming home, making dinner, like that routine is fine, but it's not really what we were called to do here on the earth. We're actually meant to live for more. And these kids were also meant to live a life greater than the one they're given. So, it kind of resonated. That song resonated with, also like where you live shouldn't determine whether or not you get to live. So it was all about living and becoming alive, and also to motivate our supporters to also live, beyond the normal status quo lifestyle.
I think I'm so glad that you said that. I was just having a conversation with my dad the other day, and as I get older and I start to reflect more deeply on life, I think to myself, like, there's got to be more. There's got to be more than just going to work and doing a 9 to 5. Not that that's not important. Stability is obviously important. I'm a realist just like you, but there's got to be something more fulfilling for the soul. There's got to be something more fulfilling for a person's desire, to find meaning in life. And this is just one of those, your organization, among many other of the organizations we've talked to, motivating service in the community, and not just locally but around the world. It adds to that. It adds to that feeling of depth of existence. And I love that. I mean, first of all, I love Switchfoot, by the way. And I think, and as you're telling me the lyrics, I'm singing it in my head and I'm saying it out loud. And I just think it's so powerful. And for people watching this, and we have such amazing viewers and listeners who love to get involved. I mean, the amount of service that people are involved with in the community is just incredible. People are motivated. If they have a couple hours on a weekend, they'll do it, to clean up a park, or to feed people in need, or to clothe people in need, or to do whatever it takes to sponsor a child who is looking for a mentor. And if people are interested, what kind of ways can we get involved besides volunteering, donating monetarily, money? Tell us about the ways that we can get involved with Meant to Live Foundation.
Sure. I mean, obviously every nonprofit is seeking to raise some type of funds, right? It's not the only way to contribute, but it's definitely a very pure way to do it, because every single dollar that goes through the organization literally lands in the hands of these children. So we've had, people sponsor a playground. We've had people sponsor a library. We've had people sponsor, and this is all open too, like sponsor books for the library. School supplies are always important. It's something that most parents here in America and around the world can relate to. They have to buy school supplies for their children. Sure. Well, these kids, I mean, this is like maybe a kid in America might be like, oh, these are school books and a backpack and pencils and pens and stuff and rulers. But the kids in Zambia look at it as a massive gift. And they look at it also as an opportunity to get out of poverty. And even at a young age, they know that. So we do like these drives all year long. We do a Christmas drive coming up as a holiday. So both for funds to raise money for a Christmas dinner for every single child, and wherever they live, usually with a guardian or an aunt or somebody, because orphans in Zambia and Africa in general, and probably around the world, become orphans because either one of two things. Maybe their parent is arrested or jailed or passed away. In Africa, a lot of them are HIV related incidents where the parents just cease to be able to live on this earth, and the kids are now stuck with their cousins, and it's like a little tiny little 1 bedroom with 10 kids.
Sure. I've spoken to children who have lost their parents and have been orphaned essentially and have nowhere to go. And can you imagine, for those people watching and listening? I mean, thankfully I'm blessed. I feel fortunate. I grew up with a lot of opportunities, and I didn't grow up with that kind of insecurity. And I know that you didn't either, but imagine being an innocent child, a vulnerable child, and losing the anchor of your life. And no matter if that's here in the United States or overseas, that is such a profoundly terrible impact, detrimental to a child. And we can do so much for these children because they are, the future of the world, frankly. And no matter where children are in the world, their innocence and their desire to live and to learn is always present. And I just think that's such an essential thing. I think it's such an essential, how do I put this? It's such an essential endeavor to do what you're doing with Meant to Live Foundation. I think it's incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, not to mention, we all know that now these communities were affected by COVID and in 2020, yes, and they don't all have the same medical resources that we have.
Right.
especially like, I live in Washington, D.C., and, we have so many resources here to help people going through that. But not only are they in poverty, but they're dealing with a pandemic that, by the
Right.
way, doesn't discriminate. That pandemic is hitting everybody.
Yeah.
And only, in certain places like that around the world, only the people that have money are able to really, get around it.
Yeah.
So
Well,
also
I agree. I was just actually, by the way, I just recovered from COVID. I had a breakthrough case, even with the vaccine. I just recovered fully 2 weeks ago. And, I'm lucky. We're living here in a modern society and I have the opportunities to be able to take care of myself. And I was sitting there feeling sorry for myself one day, feeling kind of at the depth of it, feeling pretty bad. And then it dawned on me, I'm like, it's nowhere near the suffering of other people in the world who have access to zero medical care and zero technology or zero opportunities to make themselves feel better or, any therapeutics or any even vaccines. And, it's humbling. It kind of snaps you into place. You're like, I lived and I'm good. But what about everybody else? What about the rest of the world? What about the children of the world?
Yeah, I mean, we also, while our money goes to Africa, where the poorest of the poor live, we also,
Right.
we do service work in D.C., Maryland, Virginia, and we support organizations here like Central Union Mission, which is a faith-based homeless shelter in D.C. for 200 men. We do work with D.C. Dream Center, which is after-school program, also faith-based, and Ward 7 and 8. And then there's Youth for Tomorrow, which is Joe Gibbs Foundation for underprivileged children. They were dealing with sex trafficking, homelessness, abuse. And now even the kids who were at the border that were separated, Latin kids, Mexican kids were separated at the border. They got 100 of them came over to Virginia because the Foundation Youth for Tomorrow does a really good job taking care of these kids. So one thing we started was a ministry called Splendor, which is music, was all about music. And that's a meant to live like product, right? And that's when we take all of these kids that I mentioned, we take them to a concert to see, an artist like in the Christian music world, like Toby Mac, Michael W. Smith, Amy Grant,
Sure.
Matt Moore, Lauren Daigle was a huge hit. You name anybody, Big Daddy Weep, name all these bands, in the Christian community. And they've never heard of these bands and they've never been to a Christian concert. So we get
Right.
them there. And the cool thing is we get them backstage to meet the artists. So they're back there like hanging out and we get them like swag. And we make these, underdeveloped, underprivileged children feel like VIPs. So that's the whole concept of Splendor. So they're back there. They don't know that there's 3,000 to 5,000 people in the stadium wanting to wait. We wait in line for a whole day to see these artists, but we get them straight backstage, and we get them their own green room. We buy them food. We get them like T-shirts and wristbands and stuff, and they get to meet with the artist. Then they go to the concert, and they're like, "What?" Like they see the artist on
Sure.
stage, and they turn around. And there's like in some cases 10,000 people when you got
Bigger
like.
than life. Yeah.
Yeah, because we did like Mercy Me as one of them, Casting Crowns, and Toby. These guys play for 10,000 people at Eagle Bank Arena in Fairfax, Virginia, and the kids have no idea because they haven't seen the stadium yet. Like we literally bring them. So you see their like, transformation, like they start to hear the gospel through music, and they're dancing and they're celebrating life, and they're with everybody else, and they feel included.
Yeah.
Feeling included is a big part of our
Of
ministry.
course.
So that's Splendor, and that's something we do in DC. We don't really raise money for it, but we just offer it as a service.
I was thinking people who are also watching and listen to now 100.5, listen to our radio station. One of their favorite things to do is go to live concerts. And granted, there's been a hamper on that the last 18 months of the pandemic, but now things are opening back up and people are going to live concerts. In fact, Lauren Daigle came through a couple of years ago, and that was a great concert.
Awesome.
But the joy that adults feel going to concerts,
Exactly.
imagine the joy of a child in a country where I believe the monthly income is $3.50 a month, something like that, the equivalent of US dollar. I mean, just grasp that for a moment. These opportunities simply do not exist for these children. And being able to be involved and to support Meant to Live means that these kids are going to have this opportunity. And you have done a great service to humanity, to your own, perhaps your own spiritual, emotional awareness by helping. And that's just incredible.
Thank you,
It's
man.
an incredible thing.
I appreciate the encouragement.
Of course. And so I encourage everybody to get to mentalive.org, MEANT2LIVE.org, and find out ways that you can be involved, and just click on the gallery and see all of these. See, it's very moving. You could see the work that Mentalive is doing locally and in globally. And we really appreciate the work you do, and God bless you, Eddie, and your organization and everybody involved. We thank you so much, and thanks for taking the time today too to hang out with us. We so appreciate you.
Thank you, Darik. One day I'm going to take you to Zambia on one of our trips.
I'm down. Absolutely. I would love that. I would love, and I can still do my show from Zambia. As long as we can find a good Wi-Fi connection. I think
we'll do it live from the school one day.
I would love that. I would love that.
Thanks for the opportunity, Darik.
Thank you so much for everything that you do, and thanks for joining us and telling us about Mentalive. We appreciate it, man.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
God bless, brother.